There's no doubt that the fan base of Major League Baseball have big opinions when it comes to cheating in the game, as do the writers who have a vote for the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and overwhelmingly, that opinion seems to be that cheaters should never prosper. The fan base is strongly against most forms of cheating, and to this day, there is outrage against teams and players, even some of the greatest in the history of the game, for trying to get an edge against the rules, and some of these players can't even get into the Hall of Fame. But on the other hand, we remember other players who cheated very fondly, some who were elected to the Hall of Fame, despite clearly breaking the rules and cheating. And there are other plays within the game that are clearly against the rules, but most fans don't care, with many saying, hey, it's part of the game. So in today's video, I'll be ranking 10 ways players and teams break the rules, usually to gain an advantage. And some of them send fans into an absolute frenzy, while others no one bats an eye at. Is this selective outrage? What are your thoughts? If we're going to say winning at all costs is okay, even if it means breaking the rules, shouldn't that apply across the board? Or is breaking the rules never okay? For today, when I consider what is cheating and what isn't, we're mostly focusing on violations of the written rules of Major League Baseball. So catchers framing pitches or trying to steal signs without electronics won't be included because technically they're not against the rules. So let's jump into the list, ranking 10 ways MLB players violate the rules of the game. And I'm going to rank these starting with the ones no one seems to care about, moving slowly towards the ones that enrage baseball fans everywhere. Number 10, fraternizing with players and fans. This rule is the most ignored one of all time, and for good reason. But Rule 4.06 reads, players in uniform shall not address or mingle with spectators, nor sit in the stands before, during, or after a game. No manager, coach, or player shall address any spectator before or during a game. Players of opposing teams shall not fraternize at any time while in uniform. In other words, whenever a player signs an autograph before the game, they are technically breaking the rules. And whenever former teammates hang out before the game and fraternize, they are breaking the rules. Of course, no one cares, and this rule is really not cheating since it has no effect on the actual game, but it is interesting that almost every player routinely and blatantly breaks an official MLB rule every single game, and literally no one cares, myself included. This rule probably should be removed from the rule book. Number 9, leaning into a pitch. It's always been a part of the game and was even taught to me in high school when I played that if a pitch is inside, turn into it and let it hit me so I can get on base. But it's actually against the rules. Rule 5.05b Part 2 states that a hit batsman gets a free base unless the ball is in the strike zone when it touches the batter, or if the batter makes no attempt to avoid getting touched by the ball. So a batter has to try to get out of the way of a pitch. And leaning into one is the exact opposite of that. And if the umpire fails to recognize that and awards the batter first base, the batter essentially got away with cheating. Of course, no one cares, and there's no outrage because it's always been a part of the game.
Here's the pitch. Oh, God.
Number 8, throwing at a batter intentionally. This is another aspect of the game that many fans defend because it's always been a part of the game. I'm not sure I'd call it cheating since throwing at a batter actually helps the opposite team, but it is clearly against the rules. Rule 6.02 covers this and says that if a pitcher throws at a batter intentionally, the umpire may eject the pitcher and or manager, or send out warnings, meaning the next intentional hit by pitch will mean automatic ejections. This, of course, doesn't stop it from happening, and I personally think intentionally throwing at a batter should not be part of the game. In no other profession is it acceptable to take a hard object and throw it at someone as hard as you can. You can't just throw a stapler at someone in the office because they offended you. You might end up with assault charges if you do. But in baseball, it's all just part of the game. Number 7, taking out an infielder to break up a double play. Fans are a bit mixed on this one, but for the most part, it has been accepted that a runner going into second base on a double play ball needs to go in hard to break up the double play. The problem is there's always going to be players that take it a little too far and don't just slide hard, but actually go out of the baseline to jump right into the legs or the knees of a fielder. This has resulted in some serious on-field injuries, such as Chase Utley taking out Ruben Tejada and literally breaking his leg. In 2016, the rulebook was altered, clarifying that a runner has to make a bona fide slide into the base. But even before this change, Rule 6.01 clearly stated that a runner could not interfere with a fielder. It said, if in the judgment of the umpire, a base runner willfully and deliberately interferes with a batted ball or a fielder in the act of fielding a batted ball with the obvious intent to break up a double play, the ball is dead. The umpire shall call the runner out for interference and also call the batter runner out because of the action of his teammate. This seemed pretty clear cut even before the 2016 rule change, but umpires never enforced it, and fans never really cared because sliding into second base hard to break up a double play was just part of the game. Number 6, doctoring a baseball. Rule 3.01 states that no player shall intentionally discolor or damage the ball by rubbing it with soil, rosin, paraffin, licorice, sandpaper, emery paper, or any other substance. So rubbing the ball with Twizzlers is an absolute no-no. Of course, this rule has been broken for years, going back to the spitball, which was banned in 1920 after Ray Chapman was killed from a pitched baseball that was completely discolored and hard to pick up. Despite this, many pitchers known for the spitball have been celebrated and even elected to the Hall of Fame, like Gaylord Perry, who I'm a huge fan of, but he was notorious for doctoring baseballs, or at least making hitters think he was, to gain a psychological edge. Pitchers using foreign substances to improve their grip and spin rate led to a huge controversy in 2021, and now umpires are constantly checking pitchers' hands for foreign substances. Many fans don't have a huge problem with pitchers using whatever they need to get a better grip on the baseball, as it does reduce hit by pitches, but according to the rules, using any banned substance on a baseball is considered cheating and can result in a 10-game suspension. Number 5, corking the bat. Now, as we enter the top 5, some of these rules do piss some fans off, and a big one is corking the bat, or otherwise altering the bat against regulations to improve its performance. Rule 6.03 Part 5 indicates that this is a violation of the rules, and we've seen it happen on the field before. Sammy Sosa, Chris Sabo, and Albert Bell are examples of some players who have been ejected from a game after being exposed for using a corked bat, which theoretically will help a hitter since the bat is lightened but still the same size. It has been debated whether this actually helps that much or not, but the fact is it's against the rules and players have been caught and suspended for it, and most fans probably don't look too kindly upon it, although I haven't seen nearly the same energy against corked bats as I have against some of the other cheating that I'll be talking about shortly. Number 4, altering the playing grounds. Teams tailoring their field and stadium for an advantage isn't really cheating unless they go too far, and then it can definitely ruffle a few feathers. In 1981, manager Maury Wills was suspended for ordering the grounds crew to enlarge the batter's box bigger than the rules allow at the Kingdome after the A's were complaining that Seattle hitter Tom Paciorek stepped out of the box while hitting. A's manager Billy Martin suspected foul play and reported it to the umpire, leading to the chalk being fixed and Wills being suspended 2 games. Wills himself was also a victim of similar tactics as a player when the Giants watered the field so much it became a sloppy mess in order to slow down the speedster. But one of the more blatant acts of cheating regarding a home field advantage was done at the Metrodome. Apparently, the airflow system was manipulated to help push the baseballs out further towards the fence when the Twins were batting. During most of the 80s and early 90s, the Twins' offensive power numbers were far better at home, and opposing managers like Bobby Valentine were suspicious that the Twins pumped up the wind to help the offense when their team was at bat.
But that center field area is always packed, and they always seem to have good cuts at home and not on the road, and the record indicates they play well. I think they're getting a sign somewhere.
The next item would be the air conditioning system in the Metrodome. A lot of teams theorize that the air conditioning can be turned on and off to the Twins' liking, which would govern the flight of the baseball.
Former Metrodome Superintendent Dick Erickson admitted in 2003 that he did adjust the power of the fans to give the Twins an advantage, but he said he acted alone and not at the request of the Twins. If something like this happened today, especially if the team won multiple World Series like the Twins did, it would probably be a massive story and many baseball fans would be absolutely outraged. Number 3, gambling on baseball. Rule 21, which covers misconduct, has banned gambling on baseball for umpires, players, league officials, and employees since the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And punishment is a lifetime ban if the gambling was done on a game in which the bettor has a duty to perform. And if there was no duty to perform in the game, there is still a 1-year ban. This is the cardinal sin in Major League Baseball, and for good reason. Fans are mostly in agreement that it should never be acceptable for anyone getting paid to perform in the game of baseball to also bet on the game. Of course, not everyone agrees with the lifetime ban, which resulted in one of the game's greatest players, Pete Rose, from ever being eligible for the Hall of Fame. Also, some fans understandably take exception to the fact that MLB promotes gambling through sponsorships, putting ads all over the stadium that players, umpires, and coaches can plainly see. For the most part, players have avoided gambling on the game, and part of that is the huge amounts of money they make, but it does happen. And earlier this year, 5 players were suspended for gambling. 1, Tucupita Marcano for life, since he placed bets on the Pirates while he was still on their roster. Some may not consider gambling cheating, but when money is placed on a game, it can change the way a player plays or a manager manages in a way that is not organic and natural to the way the game should be played or managed. Fans realize this and do not take too kindly to gambling in baseball. Number 2, electronic sign stealing. Sign stealing has always been a part of baseball, but it is supposed to be done on the field by paying close attention to the opposition with your own eyes without the use of electronics. Using external devices to steal signs goes a long way back, even to 1951, when the New York Giants allegedly stole signs using a telescope during the season that Bobby Thompson hit the famous shot heard around the world to defeat the Brooklyn Dodgers and win the pennant. 3 members of the Giants admitted to the sign stealing 50 years after the fact. But when it comes to using electronics to aid in stealing signs, fans proved to be completely against it, to the point of absolute insanity when the Houston Astros were caught stealing signs with electronics during their 2017 season in which they won the World Series. The trash can banging saga pissed off fans everywhere, and they booed the Astros relentlessly, and most were completely livid that the players who participated in the cheating were not suspended. Most fans thought the punishments, which included the loss of first and second round draft picks for 2 years, a $5 million fine, and 1-year suspensions to the GM and the manager, were way too lenient. The reputation of the Houston Astros has still not fully recovered, but they aren't the only team to get in trouble for stealing signs with electronics. The Red Sox were fined in 2017 for using Apple Watches to relay stolen signs to base runners. And then in 2020, they were implicated for stealing signs in 2018 using the replay room under manager Alex Cora, who was a coach on the Astros in 2017. The reaction against the Red Sox wasn't as strong as the one against the Astros, but baseball fans in general are definitely not okay with this type of cheating, although there's no doubt it's still happening in some capacity in Major League Baseball, and I believe it's only a matter of time until the next scandal hits. Number 1, players taking PEDs. But the one form of cheating that bothers fans and Hall of Fame voters more than anything is probably PED use. An entire era of baseball is now known as the steroid era, and some of the greatest players to ever live have still not been able to sniff the Hall of Fame. And this includes, of course, Barry Bonds, one of the greatest hitters to ever live, and one of the greatest pitchers to ever live, Roger Clemens. Other names include Rafael Palmeiro, Alex Rodriguez, Jose Canseco, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Manny Ramirez, and Gary Sheffield. And while many people think some of these players should get in since they would have been Hall of Famers even without the extra help, there is still a massive amount of fans who continue to berate these players and call them cheaters, among other things. The problem with the Hall of Fame is that there's already players enshrined who were suspected of steroid use, and even one, David Ortiz, whose name appeared on a list of players who supposedly tested positive for steroids. Other suspected players include Mike Piazza, Jeff Bagwell, and Ivan Rodriguez, who played with Canseco and Palmeiro on the Texas Rangers. There's almost no doubt that there are already PED users in the Hall of Fame. And although steroids were technically banned in 1991 from MLB, testing was not implemented until 2003, and PED use went completely unenforced for years. It was most definitely cheating, but if history has taught us nothing else, professional athletes and coaches will, in large numbers, cheat if given the opportunity. And so even more than the players, I blame MLB executives, owners, and Commissioner Bud Selig for allowing the steroid era to happen. But it is interesting how players can get a pass for breaking some rules and get absolutely annihilated by the fan base for others. Which of these do you think are acceptable and which are absolutely cheating and completely wrong? Is it okay to lean into a pitch to get on base or slide into an infielder to prevent a double play and help your team win? What about corking a bat to get a little extra bat speed? Or taking PEDs to help build muscle and recover faster? Where do you draw the line? Let me know your thoughts in that comment section down below. Make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to click the link above for a video on some of the biggest scandals in MLB history. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.